Story 1. Is this it, The Strokes? It ebbs and flows so casually, gracefully, and effortlessly. Like other classics mentioned here, it is more than the sum of its parts. If I hear any song from that album on the radio, my head starts playing the next track as it finishes, and I am mildly disappointed with whatever comes on instead. I feel a little sad that my rock-loving child switches from artist to artist on Spotify and is not forced by the available technology of the day to experience the fluid continuum of an album like this one, the overall collective shaped and inexorably linked by a specific time, place, and cultural context. I would have done the same, I suppose, if that was an option when I was a kid, but the nostalgic joy of seeing an album cover and being fully transported back to the bedrooms and bars of 2001 is something I feel lucky to experience. Story 2. Purple Rain, Prince. Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. Highway Companion, Tom Petty. Back in Black, AC/DC. Buena Vista Social Club. Story 3. Tool's Lateralis. I know all of the stigma and everything that comes with the fans of the band, but that album will break barriers for anyone. Story 4. Dark Side of the Moon, Animals, Wish You Were Here. I am not biased. Story 5. Thriller. 7 out of 9 songs were released as singles and all were top 10. 2 went to number 1. Story 6. Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. A Love Supreme, John Coltrane. I feel like I could pick about 8 John Coltrane albums. Loaded, Velvet Underground. If you prefer Nico, I can get behind that too. Rumors, Fleetwood Mac. Although Don't Stop from that album is a little overplayed for me. Unknown Pleasures, Joy Division. Rocket to Russia, The Ramones. Illmatic, Nas. Remain in Light, Talking Heads. London Calling, The Clash. Story 7. Metropolis Part 2. Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater. Story 8. Revolver by the Beatles. Not only is it a collection of catchy, hummable songs, it is a marvel of late 1960s music production. They only had 4 tracks, and they created incredibly layered audio landscapes. Put everyone on their heels. The Rolling Stones and the Beach Boys were all playing catch-up after Revolver and set the stage for the psychedelic 1960s era that is still being imitated. Story 9. Rush, Moving Pictures. Steely Dan, Aja. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. Queens of the Stone Age songs for the deaf. Rage Against the Machine, Rage Against the Machine. Story 10. Lots of great albums already. Here are a few I have listened to again recently that I do not think I have seen mentioned. Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden. Paul Simon, Graceland. Muse, Origin of Symmetry. Aphex Twin. Selected Ambient Works 85 to 92. Burial, Untrue. Daniel Avery, Drone Logic. Rage Against the Machine, Rage Against the Machine. Portishead, Dummy. The Prodigy, Music for the Jilted Generation. Story 11. Iowa by Slipknot. That or the whole Toxicity album by System of a Down. Story 12. OK Computer, Radiohead. Kid A, Radiohead. The Bends, Radiohead. In Rainbows, Radiohead. Yes, I like Radiohead. Story 13. My picks are The Glow Part 2 by The Microphones. Good Kid. Mastered Academy for Advanced Development City by Kendrick Lamar. Oklahoma Computer by Radiohead. F# A# Infinity by Godspeed You. Black Emperor and Blonde by Frank Ocean. Story 14. Killswitch Engage as Daylight Dies. Lamb of God Sacrament. Story 15. The Pixies, Doolittle. Story 16. Paul Simon, Graceland. Radiohead, OK Computer. 9 Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral. Phoebe Bridgers, Punisher. The Cure, Disintegration. Story 17. Collide with the Sky by Pierce the Veil. Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent. The Eminem Show by Eminem. Nevermind by Nirvana. The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. Enema of the State by Blink-182. Hellbilly Deluxe by Rob Zombie. I hate to say it, but I enjoyed every song from 1989 by Taylor Swift. Story 18. Let Me Just Be the Based Millennial and Say Currents by Tame Impala. Story 19. Rush, Moving Pictures and or Permanent Waves. Live Throwing Copper. Bare Naked Ladies Stunt. Seriously. Story 20. Deaf Consciousness by Have a Nice Life. The Glow Part 2 by The Microphones. Story 21, Megadeth Rust in Peace, Peace Sells but Who's Buying? Necrophagist Epitaph Onset of Putrefaction. Metallica Master of Puppets and Injustice for All. Story 22, U2, Joshua Tree. U2 Achtung Baby. 21 Pilots Trench. Hawthorne Heights Silence in Black and White. Taking Back Sunday Where You Wanna Be. Alanis Morissette Jagged Little Pill. Story 23, 3 Days Grace 1X. Bad Omens The Death of Peace of Mind. Architects for Those That Wish to Exist. Bring Me the Horizon Sempiternal. Gajira From Mars to Sirius. The Plot in You Dispose. Motionless in White Disguise. I Prevail Trauma. I Might Be a Metalcore Listener. Story 24, Bewitched Luna. Armed Forces Elvis Costello. The Swinging Mr. Rogers. Time Further Out Dave Brubeck. The Who Sell Out. Elvis at Sun. Station to Station Bowie. Story 25, The Race for Space by Public Service Broadcasting. Not the most well-known album, but it is an audio experience that tells the race for space in a very interesting way. Try the song Go, which is probably the highlight of the album and is about the landing of Apollo 11 in a really fun way. If you like that, listen to the whole album in one sitting. Story 26, Tool. Anima. 9 Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral. Fiona Apple, Extraordinary Machine. Metallica, and Justice for All. REM, Life's Rich Pageant. DJ Shadow introducing. Run DMC, Raising Hell. Story 27. OK Computer and In Rainbows by Radiohead are definitely some of my favorite albums. Minutes to Midnight by Linkin Park is close, though. Story 28. Boston's debut album. Every song still receives regular airplay. Story 29. The Jam Setting Suns. ABBA. The album. James Lade. REM. Automatic for the People. Fleetwood Mac Rumors. Cast All Change. Levelers Leveling the Land. Story 30. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Every Song Speaks to Me. Story 31. Tame Impala Currents. Turnstile Glow On. Knocked Loose You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to. Story 32. Radiohead. OK Computer. Deftones White Pony. The Postal Service Give Up. Story 33. The Stage, Avenged Sevenfold. It is the most experimental that Avenged Sevenfold had gotten up to that point. Their latest release, Life Is But a Dream, goes a bit too far as I care, but I still love it to bits. Musically, all songs are excellent. Technical drumming and skilled guitar work, alongside a variety of other instruments for some songs. But that is not what sold me on it. The lyrical content was. The whole album is about how we as humans fill our space in the wider world and universe, and the problems we have created through scientific advancement and might still create. The first song, aptly titled The Stage, sets the foundation for the rest of the album. It tells of the innumerable atrocities and acts of violence humans have committed in the name of their countries, kings, and gods, acting as mere puppets to a greater power. The second song is Paradigm, a song that makes me think of how scientific advancement may lead to unnaturally long lifespans in the near future, but at the cost of what made life worth living: death. Enhancing ourselves mechanically through nanotechnology to the point where you might not be able to differentiate yourself from a machine any longer. Thirdly, we have my favorite song, Sunny Disposition. This one is about nuclear war, and how the people who press the buttons to launch the missile do so with no regard for the regular people they might end up hitting with the blasts. It also paints a vivid picture of how militaristic nations make their population live in abhorrent conditions, while the elite live lavishly. Also, the trumpets, they hit hard. Goddamn is next, as a refute of nationalism and blindly following whatever the government and media tell you. The part that gets to me the most is the lyrics in the bridge and how the instrumentation changes to a more acoustic sound for a few seconds. Creating God is also one of my favorites on the album. It tells a story of how humanity finally decided to pull the trigger on genetic modification in humans, and how the divide between enhanced humans and regular ones will cause the end of humanity as we know it. Also, the lyric "a little kick in the pool shouldn't do us wrong" is just amazing. Next is Angels. It is a bit of a thematic departure from the rest of the album, and I do like the song, but it feels like a weaker link to the rest of the greatness this album holds. This main theme is regret. This might be the regret that we as humanity might have if we do not reach for the stars and aim to make civilization the best we can, but that is stretching it as far as I care. If you take it more at face value as a song about regret, it is still a great piece of music with a lot of emotion in it, so it does not necessarily take away from the album's total score. Simulation is, as you might guess, about a person stuck in a simulation of the real world. The cracks have started to show, and reality as they know it is crumbling around them. They find themselves to be a sort of test subject that has been pumped full of drugs to keep them in their fake world. In the end, no matter what they do, they cannot escape. I am just a sucker for a song with a Matrix vibe. Then comes Higher, a song about an astronaut in a spacecraft that went off course in the solar system. There is no longer any power to divert the ship, and they are waiting for the end to come, lamenting the fact that they are facing certain death. But they are glad they will get to join someone they loved in death, whom they likely lost to a launching accident. It is really emotional, and though at first I really did not like it just as I did with Angels, I have come around in the past 8 years since its release. Roman Sky is next, and is a stark departure from the heavy metal we have enjoyed so far. It is a rather melancholic song about an unnamed astronomer from long ago who wanted to show the world how the solar system was put together, and how we are but a small piece of a much larger universe. But the church, stuck in its ways, ended up executing this man for heresy. At first, I thought this was about Galileo, but as he was not put to death by the church, that did not seem right. As others have found, it was actually about Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake in Rome in the 1600s. Truly a chilling song. Fermi Paradox is the penultimate track on the album, which is about, you guessed it, the Fermi Paradox. In simple terms, the paradox claims that in a near infinitely large universe, life cannot be unique to our planet alone. It must have happened elsewhere too. But then, why are there no other signs of life elsewhere? Is it because no civilization has gotten further than claiming its own planet? Is it because others have died off? Or is it because we are the first and maybe the most advanced? I guess we will never know in our lifetimes. And then, to finish it off, we have probably the most epic song on the album, Exist. This song embodies the past, present, and future of the universe and the human race within it. It starts before the Big Bang, with almost nothing coherent going on, before exploding into a bombastic guitar solo representing the Big Bang and the expansion of the universe. Then, the music calms down and we get our first vocals. This is the present part of the song, though that is taken very liberally. It is about the tiny speck on the timeline that humanity has taken up, and how we have grown so much over the past few 100,000 years. Then, when the music picks up again, we get a full speech from Neil deGrasse Tyson about the many struggles of humanity that are keeping us from reaching our full potential as a civilization, and how hope for a better future should be on all of our minds. The song is nearly 16 minutes, but it goes by faster than you realize. Absolutely one of my top picks from the album. All of these songs I hold close to my heart and give me hope that we as humanity can figure out our differences, get to the root of the problems that face us, and not destroy ourselves. It is a truly inspiring album for a band that has not really made anything else that would be considered influential music. Sure, I like their other work as well, even going back to their first album, but this album has changed me more as a person than any other piece of media has ever done. And for that, I cannot give it a score lower than 10 out of 10. Summary: it is an album about technology, humanity, and how they mix well and do not. 10 out of 10. Story 34. Physical graffiti. Let It Bleed. Sticky Fingers. On a good day, I'll add Hotel California. Story 35. Trio. Story 36. Einstürzend Neubauten. Half Mensch. Story 37. Ideal, der Ernst des Lebens. Story 38. Susie and the Banshees. Tinderbox. Story 39. The Blues Project. Projections. Dougie MacLean, Craigie Dunn. Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. Suite for Flute and Jazz Piano, Claude Bolling. Judy Collins' Wildflowers. Story 40. Alice in Chains' Jar of Flies. It is good from front to back, and I think it is timeless. Story 41. How about one most people will not know? Calyx No Turning Back. The best drum and bass of all time in my opinion. Story 42. Unpeeled, Cage the Elephant. Live album with an orchestra. Story 43. What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. I am really surprised no one has mentioned it yet. It is, in my opinion, one of the most important albums of the 20th century. Honorable mention. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. Story 44. OK Computer and Kid A by Radiohead. Origin of Symmetry by Muse. Black Market Music by Placebo. Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness by Smashing Pumpkins. Nevermind and In Utero by Nirvana. The Weight of Your Love by The Editors. Thriller, Bad, and Dangerous by Michael Jackson. Life in Cartoon Motion by Mika. In Silico by Pendulum. Velocifero by Ladytron. Army of Mushrooms by Infected Mushrooms. Arrival by ABBA. Dummy by Portishead. Morning Glory and Definitely Maybe by Oasis. The Fat of the Land by The Prodigy. Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. Story 45. BD by Baxter Jury, Etienne de Crécy, and Delilah Holiday. Story 46. From Mars to Sirius, Gajira. No filler at all on that album. Story 47. Metalwise, My Opinions. Panopticon Isis. Opeth Blackwater Park. The Way of All Flesh Gajira. Disillusion I Am. Scamish Triangle. Story 48. Honestly, Random Access Memories by Daft Punk is truly excellent. Story 49. Spiderland by Slint. Yank Crime by Drive Like Jehu. I am not biased by having tattoos inspired by these albums. London Calling by The Clash. Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Story 50. Everyone here is saying Disintegration by The Cure, but I was here to also say Disintegration by The Cure, and now I feel left out. Story 51. Hellions Opera Oblivia. Microwave Much Love. The Jeffries, Holland. Story 52. Sgt. Pepper's by the Beatles. Darkness on the Edge of Town by Bruce Springsteen. Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy. Story 53. Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. Endless 1990s Nostalgia. All hits. Story 54. Cardiacs, A Little Man and a House and the Whole World Window. Story 55. Queen Greatest Hits. The Black Cassette with Their Picture from 1985. Story 56. Pretty Odd by Panic at the Disco. Right Thoughts, Right Words, Wrong Order by Franz Ferdinand. Ixnay on the Ombre by The Offspring. The Second Law by Muse. We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank by Modest Mouse. Happiness Limited by Hot Hot Heat. Story 57. Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. The Deer Hunters Act 2. The Meaning of and All Things Regarding Misleading. Story 58. King Crimson, Red. Donovan Open Road. Adam and the Ants Kings of the Wild Frontier. Japan Tin Drum. Killing Joke Nighttime. Story 59. I Will Go. PJ Harvey Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea. Radiohead, OK Computer. Refused The Shape of Punk to Come. Black Sabbath Master of Reality. Cheap Trick, In Color. Husker Du New Day Rising. Story 60. Invent Animate's Heavener is an unbelievably good album from front to back with no filler. Completely overflowing with originality and technical mastery. Story 61. Logic Under Pressure. Such a well-written album straight from the heart. Story 62. The Streets Are Grand and Do Not Come for Free. Epic storytelling across a full album. Story 63. Looked but Could Not Find It. Crime of the Century by Supertramp. True 10 out of 10. Story 64. 8,000 Suns by Linkin Park. The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. Story 65. The Work Rivers of Nihil. Dream Feeling Moxie the Band. Wider Than the Sky 40 What Sun. Story 66. Dying Star Rustin Kelly. I promise you will love it if you listen. Country music has never been so raw, creative, and honest. It is an album that turns people who are not into country into listeners, at least of Ruston Kelly. Story 67. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy. Perfect 11 if you ask me. Story 68. Predator by Ice Cube. License to Ill by Beastie Boys. Corn by Corn. Sublime by Sublime. Story 69. In my opinion, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon, Khruangbin Mordecai. Story 70. Tool Lateralis. The Cure, Disintegration. Circa Survive, Blue Sky Noise. Alice in Chains, Unplugged. No Doubt, Tragic Kingdom. Story 71. Nas, It Was Written. Drake, Nothing Was the Same. Jeezy, These Things Happen. Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, Mad City. These albums I can listen to at any time and understand very easily since I'm not from America or a native English speaker. Story 72. Most albums listed are some sort of alternative or rock, and while I love rock and saw some tens, a lot of pop suggestions are getting downvoted. Let's expand our taste and not immediately dislike pop music. I recommend The Family Jewels by Marina and Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter. Story 73. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Metal, Wish You Were Here. Story 74. Bad Brains Live at the Paradiso. Paul's Boutique. Jar of Flies. Alice in Chains Unplugged. Rage Against the Machine. No Effects, I heard they are not good live. The Cranberries. No Need to Argue. Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power. Appetite for Destruction. No Means No. Story 75. Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. Oyster by Heather Nova. And Hear Me Out, the soundtrack from Cruel Intentions. Story 76. On Land and in the Sea and Heaven Born and Ever Bright by Cardiacs. Friend Opportunity by Deerhoof. Body Shape by The Raincoats. Leaves Turn Inside You by Unwound. Spirit of Eden and Laughingstock by Talk Talk. Story 77. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. David Bowie. Story 78. Eminem Show. Backstreet Boys Millennium. Bone Thugs and Harmony 1999 Eternal. Story 79. Headhunters Herbie Hancock. Apostrophe Frank Zappa. Black Radio Robert Glasper. I Lay Down My Life for You, Spegmafia. Collision Course Jay-Z and Linkin Park. Story 80. Charlie's Angels Full Throttle Soundtrack. Absolute Perfection All the Way Through. Story 81. A Tribe Called Quest Low End Theory. DJ Shadow Introducing. Story 82. Radiohead, OK Computer. The Prodigy Fat of the Land. Massive Attack Mezzanine. Story 83. The Desaturating Seven and Primus and the Chocolate Factory by Primus. Story 84. Ella sings Gershwin, Ella and Lewis, and Ella Fitzgerald sings the Duke Ellington Songbook. Stevie Wonder, Music of My Mind, Talking Book, and Inner Visions. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper and Abbey Road. Carole King, Tapestry. The Strokes, Is This It? Radiohead, OK Computer. Keen Hopes and Fears. Coldplay, A Rush of Blood to the Head. Corinne Bailey Rae, Put Your Records On is the weakest track on that perfect album. BTS, Wings, Love Yourself, Answer and Map of the Soul. I don't skip a single song, making these albums perfect tens. I also count Lin-Manuel Miranda, Moana and Hamilton. I saw Disintegration mentioned many times. I did not know it was that popular. Certainly was an amazing album. Someone mentioned Doolittle. I agree. Story 85. Ladytron Velocifero. Uncle, Where Did the Night Fall? Radiohead in Rainbows / OK Computer. Rage Against the Machine Evil Empire. 9 Inch Nails The Fragile. PJ Harvey Let England Shake. Santa Sabina Babel. Caifanes, El Nervio del Volcán. Miles Davis Kind of Blue, etc. Story 86. The Protoman. Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4 Part 1. Fear Through the Eyes of a Madman Coheed and Cambria. Moving Pictures, Rush. Songs for the Deaf Queens of the Stone Age. Discovery, Daft Punk. Streets of Rage 2 official game soundtrack. This soundtrack is excellent. Story 87. Office Gray Advice Governor Sparkle Sharp Hospital Unwritten Meeting Plant. Story 88. American Idiot by Green Day. Blood Sugar Sex Magic by Red Hot Chili Peppers. Story 89. Orange Rhyming Dictionary, Jets to Brazil. Give it a listen. Story 90. Although I did not listen to it recently, Across the Sun has an amazing album. Sadly, it is their first and last. Story 91. Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. Don Juan's Reckless Daughter by Joni Mitchell. Story 92. Queens of the Stone Age, Like Clockwork. Sneaker Pimps Becoming X. Snake River Conspiracy Sonic Jihad. Story 93. Mood Mild Minds. Lahai Sampha. Instrumental Relics, Clams Casino. Good Faith Madion. Story 94. Lux Prima by Danger Mouse and Karen O. Emotional, consistent, and direct. There is a silver thread throughout all the songs that gives a sense of unity, yet each one is unique. Story 95. Not a single country album mentioned in these comments is wild. I am not even a huge country music fan, but to add one that has not been mentioned yet, Golden Hour by Casey Musgraves. Every song on that album is excellent, especially Rainbow. Story 96. Nas Illmatic. Lupe Fiasco Food and Liquor. Red Hot Chili Peppers Stadium Arcadium. Radiohead OK Computer. The Roots Things Fall Apart. Story 97. Metallica. The Black Album. Not a single song on the album makes me think Skip. Story 98. Keep Me Fed by The Warning. Some great variety of rock and roll, all within their unique sound. The pinnacle of what they have worked towards so far. Highly recommend giving them a listen. Story 99. I don't know what all the top 10 will be, but I definitely know one of them will be OK Computer. Story 100. Blind Faith. I played my dad's original vinyl pressing in the late 1980s when I was in high school. I was into very different kinds of music and did not know what to expect. It hit me very profoundly and emotionally. Timeless classic. Story 101. I've been a big Genesis fan ever since the release of their 1980 album, Duke. Before that, I did not really understand any of their work. It was too artsy, too intellectual. It was on Duke where Phil Collins' presence became more apparent. I think Invisible Touch is the group's undisputed masterpiece. It is an epic meditation on intangibility. Story 102. Powerage, Highway to Hell, Back in Black Trifecta. Don Henley, End of the Innocence 1989. Somewhere in Time, Iron Maiden 1986. Master of Puppets 1986. Saturday Night Fever. Thriller, Michael Jackson. Story 103. Quench by the Beautiful South. But I Heard She Wears a 12. Story 104. Somewhere at the Bottom of the River Between Vega and Altair by La Dispute is literal perfection. Every song is exactly as long as it needs to be, and there is not a single wasted note. Story 105. Manifesto by Sunburst. Absolutely flawless progressive metal. Superb writing, introspective lyrics, fantastic vocals, amazing guitar work, tight rhythm section. It is all there. Brilliant hooks, great leads, and some very tasty tapping and bending during solos. Zero complaints. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.